Ladies and gentlemen, today we confront a reality that many of us are unwilling to acknowledge, yet it impacts our lives daily: the presence of evil and the deceptive forces that seek to guide us astray. Our world is constantly at war, not just with what we see, but with what is unseen. There are individuals among us moving in the shadows who seem to be agents of chaos and darkness. It is time to recognize the signs. Now you may ask, how can we discern the true nature of a person? How do we identify the forces at work within them? Well, the answer is simple: by examining their actions, words, and the fruits of their behavior. It is crucial to understand that evil doesn't always appear as monstrous or overt. Often it comes disguised in charm, in manipulation, and in subtlety. First, a man who is influenced by the devil seeks to control, not liberate. His actions are rooted in the desire to dominate others, to bend them to his will. It is never about empowering or uplifting those around him. He wears a mask of kindness, but beneath it lies a deep need to be the one in charge. When a person seeks to control your thoughts, your emotions, and your actions, this is the first sign that something darker is at play. Secondly, a man under this influence is deceptive. His words are always laced with lies, half-truths, and misleading statements. He has mastered the art of manipulation. You will never be sure of where you stand with him, because his words change with the winds of convenience. He tells you what you want to hear, not what you need to hear. This deceit is a powerful tool for the devil because it creates confusion, doubt, and mistrust. The third sign is the presence of violence, both in words and actions. A man from the devil will use aggression, intimidation, and anger to impose his will on others. He seeks to stir division and foster conflict wherever he goes. Whether it's through a raised voice, a clenched fist, or a violent outburst, the spirit within him desires nothing more than to destroy peace and bring chaos into the hearts of men. Another unmistakable sign is when a man consistently works against the principles of truth, love, and righteousness. He will always challenge what is good, standing in direct opposition to the values that hold societies together. He despises anything that brings unity and healing. His way is a way of destruction, seeking to unravel the fabric of family, community, and nation. When you encounter someone who is continuously advocating for selfish gain at the expense of others, know that you are in the presence of a dark influence. A man who aligns himself with darkness often seeks to cause isolation. The devil's plan is to separate individuals from their communities, their families, and their God-given purpose. If you observe a man who isolates others, who drives wedges between people, and who encourages division and disunity, you are seeing the effect of the devil's work. Isolation breeds weakness and vulnerability, exactly what the devil wants to exploit. A man from the devil also shows a lack of accountability. He will refuse to take responsibility for his actions, his words, and his decisions. Instead, he places the blame on others, shifting guilt and shame to avoid confronting his own shortcomings. This refusal to face his own flaws and to make amends is a sign of a deep-rooted pride that prevents him from growing or changing. Furthermore, the spirit within him will lead him into indulgence, especially in the areas of greed, lust, and pride. He is driven by an insatiable hunger for more power, more wealth, more control. His desires are never satisfied, and he is constantly seeking ways to satisfy a void that can never be filled. This is the deceptive nature of the devil's influence. It promises fulfillment, but delivers emptiness. A man under this influence will never recognize or respect boundaries. He will overstep the lines of decency and morality, always seeking to push further and further. His disregard for boundaries creates chaos in relationships, workplaces, and communities. He shows no respect for the personal space, values, or feelings of others. Where there should be respect and consideration, there is only self-interest and disregard. Another sign is an individual who is always blaming others for his failures and shortcomings. A man who is controlled by the devil will rarely, if ever, look inwards to assess his own faults. Instead, he'll project his failures onto others, claiming that his misfortune is a result of someone else's actions. This tendency to deflect responsibility keeps him trapped in a cycle of denial, making it impossible for him to change and grow. Finally, the most dangerous sign of all is the deliberate destruction of hope. A man with a heart aligned with darkness has no interest in building up. Instead, he seeks to destroy dreams, ambitions, and the very hope that sustains life. He will tear down others to build himself up, and in the process he leaves devastation in his wake. His presence alone is a threat to hope, progress, and peace. These are not just characteristics of a bad person, they are signs of a deeper, more sinister force at work. The devil is not an abstract concept, he is real, and his influence can manifest in the lives of individuals who are either unaware or complicit in his schemes. Recognizing these signs is not enough. We must take action, stand firm in our values, seek to protect ourselves and those around us from such influences, and strive to embody the light that can drive out the darkness. A man seeking control rather than empowerment signifies a dark influence. Deception is a tool of manipulation used by individuals aligned with evil. Violence, in both words and actions, reveals the presence of destructive forces. Opposition to truth, love, and righteousness reflects the devil's work. Isolation and division are strategies of darkness to weaken communities. Lack of accountability shows deep-rooted pride and refusal to change. Indulgence in greed, lust, and pride is a sign of emptiness and deceit. Disregard for boundaries indicates a spirit of lawlessness and chaos. Blaming others for personal failures prevents growth and healing. The deliberate destruction of hope is the most dangerous manifestation of evil. A man seeking control rather than empowerment signifies a dark influence. At the heart of this desire for control is the fear of being powerless. The devil operates through fear, fear of vulnerability, fear of loss, and fear of the unknown. Those who are influenced by this fear seek to impose their will on others, attempting to create a false sense of security by dominating and manipulating those around them. This control is not about building up others or contributing to their growth. It is about making others dependent, bending them to one's own desires, and using them as pawns in a larger game. Such a person will often charm and appeal to others by offering promises of safety, success, or comfort, but these promises are empty. They are designed to make others feel indebted, trapped, and ultimately subjugated. Instead of empowering those around them to discover their own strength and purpose, they seek to suppress them, making them believe that they cannot succeed without the control of the individual in question. This subtle manipulation is dangerous, for it gradually erodes the confidence of the people it affects. It destroys their sense of autonomy and self-worth, leaving them dependent on the one who seeks control. The spirit of control also thrives on fear, manipulation, and intimidation. Where true leadership inspires trust and freedom, the manipulative leader inspires submission through fear. These individuals use their position or their words to threaten, pressure, or coerce others into doing their bidding. It could be in the workplace, at home, or even within larger societal systems. Their presence fosters an environment where people feel small, voiceless, and incapable of making decisions for themselves. True empowerment comes through love and encouragement. It builds others up, allowing them to grow and flourish in their unique abilities. But those who operate under the influence of dark forces view empowerment as a threat, for it is in the freedom of others that their control is weakened. In their eyes, the stronger and more independent others become, the more they lose their hold. So they ensure that those around them remain in a constant state of dependence, perpetually needing their approval, their guidance, or their direction. This cycle is not one of growth, but of stagnation, and it is a clear sign that something darker is at work in that individual's heart. Deception is a tool of manipulation used by individuals aligned with evil. The devil's influence often comes wrapped in a guise of charm and persuasiveness. These individuals know how to speak the right words at the right time, weaving a web of lies and half-truths that confuse and mislead. Deception isn't always about telling outright lies. It can also be about withholding key truths, distorting facts, and presenting a reality that is far removed from what is genuine. This manipulation creates a sense of doubt and confusion, leading others to question their own judgment and understanding of situations. The deceptive individual will tell you exactly what you want to hear, shaping their narrative to align with your desires or fears. They will present themselves as trustworthy and reliable, while subtly working to steer you away from your truth. Their words are like poison, initially sweet, but ultimately destructive. Their goal is not to communicate honestly or build real relationships, but to control and mold the perception of others, ensuring they remain in a position of influence. One of the most insidious aspects of deception is that it often leads to self-doubt. When you are constantly misled or manipulated, you begin to question your own perceptions, your beliefs, and your values. Over time, this confusion erodes your sense of self and can lead to a loss of clarity and direction. A deceptive person plays on this vulnerability, knowing that when you are uncertain and disoriented, you are more likely to fall in line with their agenda. This manipulation of reality is a hallmark of the devil's influence, for confusion is a powerful tool in preventing people from seeing the truth. A man under the influence of evil will use deceit not just for personal gain, but to sow discord and mistrust among others. This divisiveness is part of a larger strategy to weaken communities and break down unity. When lies are spread, trust is destroyed, and the bond that holds people together begins to crumble. This is the purpose of deception: to create division, to ensure that people are too distracted by falsehoods to see the real issue at hand, and ultimately to turn them away from truth and righteousness. The presence of violence, whether verbal or physical, is another clear sign. Those who are driven by dark influences seek to stir division and conflict wherever they go. They will not hesitate to escalate situations, turning simple disagreements into all-out battles, because they thrive in the midst of discord. In relationships, workplaces, and communities, they will provoke arguments, sow seeds of resentment, and encourage people to fight among themselves. In this way, the spirit of violence perpetuates itself, creating a vicious cycle that leads to deeper division and destruction. The ultimate goal is to prevent unity, to prevent peace, and to destroy any sense of harmony that may exist. When you encounter someone whose presence always brings tension and conflict, it is a clear sign that they are being guided by dark forces. Another critical sign of this influence is when a man works directly against the principles of truth, love, and righteousness. This is often evident in his consistent opposition to what is good, pure, and just. The devil's work is always rooted in destruction and deception. And when an individual becomes aligned with these forces, they will naturally reject or twist anything that represents light and truth. A person who consistently undermines good values, whether through actions, words, or behavior, reveals a heart that is bent on corruption. Such a person will stand in direct opposition to anything that seeks to uplift and encourage. The man who works against truth often challenges moral standards, advocating for behavior that undermines justice, integrity, and fairness. Where there should be honesty, he will sow lies. Where there should be love, he will create hate. Where there should be respect, he will foster disrespect. This opposition is not simply about personal preference. It is an intentional effort to break down the foundational principles that hold society together. By standing against truth, love, and righteousness, such an individual seeks to bring about chaos, disorder, and confusion. He will often challenge what others believe to be right, trying to convince them that morality is relative or subjective. His arguments are designed to break down established standards of goodness, leading people to question their own values and beliefs. His presence in any space will foster doubt and confusion, leading others to stray from the path of righteousness. He does not just live outside the principles of truth, he actively works to corrupt and undermine them, making it more difficult for others to stand firm in what they know to be right. This destructive behavior is one of the clearest signs of a heart that is aligned with dark forces, as it seeks to tear down what is good, leaving only destruction in its wake. The spirit of isolation is another powerful tool used by those under dark influence. A man who isolates others, pushing them away from their families, communities, or support systems, is operating from a place of evil. Isolation is one of the devil's greatest strategies because it leaves individuals vulnerable and weak, making it easier to manipulate and control them. When someone consistently works to separate others, to create division between friends and loved ones, this is a clear indication that something is wrong. The goal of isolation is to make people feel alone, abandoned, and disconnected from their source of strength. The devil knows that a person who is isolated is more susceptible to his influence. This isolation can be subtle at first. It may begin with small comments designed to create doubt about the people around you. Perhaps they say things like they don't really understand you or they don't have your best interest at heart. Over time, these comments chip away at relationships, causing you to question the loyalty and support of those closest to you. It is a tactic of divide and conquer, sowing seeds of distrust and suspicion, gradually breaking down the bonds that connect people. When a person is made to feel that they are better off alone, that others are not worthy of their trust, the devil has already begun his work. Indulgence in greed, lust, and pride is a sign of emptiness and deceit. A man driven by these desires is always seeking more, never content with what he has. Greed is a powerful force that leads individuals to prioritize material wealth and self-interest over the well-being of others. It manifests in a constant hunger for more money, more power, more influence, believing that satisfaction lies in acquisition. But no matter how much they accumulate, they are left feeling empty. The desire to possess and control becomes insatiable as greed blinds the individual to the richness of life that cannot be bought. It leads to exploitation, taking from others to fill a void that can never truly be filled. Lust, on the other hand, reduces human connection to mere physical desire. A man ruled by lust seeks to exploit others for personal gratification, disregarding their dignity, their worth, and their humanity. Lust is not about love or intimacy, it is about using others as tools to satisfy one's own cravings. This deep-rooted desire for selfish pleasure creates cycles of emptiness and destruction as the person becomes enslaved by their own appetites. No amount of indulgence can satisfy this hunger, it only grows stronger, perpetuating an endless cycle of need and dissatisfaction. Pride, the most deceptive of all, makes a man believe he is above others, above accountability, and above correction. A prideful heart is filled with arrogance, believing that one's own desires and opinions are more important than anyone else's. This pride leads to a sense of superiority, a constant drive to elevate oneself at the expense of others. It blinds a person to their own faults, as they refuse to acknowledge any weakness or imperfection. The man controlled by pride can never grow or change, for he is too busy propping up his own image to see the areas where he needs transformation. It is the opposite of humility, which opens the door to learning, growth, and connection. But pride keeps the individual trapped in a false sense of invincibility and self-sufficiency. Disregard for boundaries is another significant marker of someone influenced by dark forces. Boundaries are essential in maintaining healthy relationships and communities. They serve to protect the dignity, space, and autonomy of individuals. However, a man who operates from a place of darkness sees boundaries as obstacles to be ignored or broken. Whether in personal relationships, the workplace, or in public spaces, he will overstep limits, pushing people beyond their comfort zones for personal gain or to impose his will. This disregard for boundaries is a form of manipulation and control. The individual does not respect the need for personal space, emotional safety, or physical security. Instead, he seeks to impose his desires on others, regardless of how they may feel or what they may need. This lack of respect for boundaries is a form of exploitation. A man who does not honor the personal limits of others will manipulate them into situations where they feel uncomfortable or powerless. In relationships, this may show up as emotional abuse, where one partner refuses to respect the other's need for privacy, autonomy, or space. In the workplace, it could manifest as an employer pushing employees beyond their limits, expecting more work than is reasonable, and showing no regard for their well-being. This overstepping can be subtle at first, perhaps starting with small requests that seem harmless, but it quickly escalates into a pattern of manipulation and control. When you encounter someone who constantly disregards boundaries, know that their actions are designed to undermine your peace and your autonomy, creating a toxic environment where only their needs and desires matter. This refusal to face one's own flaws is rooted in pride and fear. Fear of admitting fault, fear of appearing weak or inadequate, and fear of confronting the truth. Instead of facing the truth and making amends, the prideful person builds walls around themselves, pushing away any opportunities for self-reflection or personal growth. This results in stagnation, as they are unable to learn from their mistakes or grow into a better version of themselves. Instead of seeking forgiveness or making reparations, the blame is always placed on others, perpetuating conflict and preventing healing. The devil thrives in such an environment, where responsibility is avoided and growth is blocked. Deliberate destruction of hope is one of the most damaging signs of dark influence. Hope is the force that keeps people moving forward, that gives them the strength to face another day, to overcome challenges, and to pursue their dreams. But the individual who is a man who destroys hope does so because he understands that without it, people become passive, incapable of challenging their circumstances. Hope fuels ambition, resilience, and action. When it is lost, despair sets in and people become resigned to their fate. This resignation leads to the gradual erosion of communities as individuals give up on each other and on the potential for positive change. The more hopeless people feel, the less they are inclined to fight for justice or pursue their potential. They become like sheep to be led, rather than individuals with the power to transform their own lives and the world around them. Another key sign of dark influence is the continuous erosion of trust. Trust is the foundation of any meaningful relationship, whether between friends, families, or entire communities. Without trust, there is no basis for cooperation, love, or mutual respect. A man influenced by dark forces will work relentlessly to undermine. Another key sign of dark influence is the continuous erosion of trust. Trust is the foundation of any meaningful relationship, whether between friends, families, or entire communities. Without trust, there is no basis for cooperation, love, or mutual respect. A man influenced by dark forces will work relentlessly to undermine this trust. He will sow seeds of suspicion, spread lies, and manipulate circumstances in such a way that people no longer believe in one another. He thrives on division and strife, seeking to create an atmosphere where people question the motives and integrity of those around them. This breakdown of trust fosters fear and isolation, making individuals more vulnerable to manipulation and control. The individual who seeks to destroy trust does so by taking advantage of others' vulnerabilities. He exploits their secrets, uses their weaknesses as weapons, and turns them against one another. He knows that when trust is broken, relationships unravel and communities fall apart. He will position himself as a source of reassurance, as someone who can offer answers to the chaos he has created, but in reality, he is the very architect of that chaos. This type of behavior thrives in environments where people are already insecure or struggling with fear and doubt, as they are more likely to fall into his manipulative tactics. One of the most destructive outcomes of eroded trust is the way it breeds paranoia. People start to question not just the intentions of the manipulator, but also the intentions of everyone around them. They become afraid to be vulnerable, to open up, or to offer kindness because they fear that their goodwill will be used against them. Paranoia spreads like a virus, infecting relationships and communities, causing people to build walls around their hearts and minds. It creates an environment where cooperation and unity become impossible, as everyone is too consumed by fear to work together for a common good. When trust is systematically dismantled, people begin to turn inward, becoming more self-centered and defensive. They feel like they have to protect themselves at all costs, which leads to a lack of generosity and compassion. Instead of offering help to others, they become consumed with their own survival. This survival mentality feeds division, as people become focused solely on their own needs and desires. The spirit of unity is replaced by a spirit of competition and suspicion, and any collective effort to build something greater is destroyed by the constant undermining of trust. Furthermore, an individual who manipulates trust is often unable to experience genuine relationships themselves. Their interactions are transactional and self-serving. They may form connections based on what they can extract from others, not on mutual respect or love. This creates an environment where people are treated as objects or tools, rather than as individuals with inherent worth. Such a person is emotionally disconnected, unable to experience the joy of true companionship or the depth of human connection. In their efforts to control and manipulate others, they lose the ability to foster real, meaningful relationships, leaving them isolated in their own loneliness. The man who undermines trust also has a profound impact on the emotional and mental well-being of those around him. He creates an atmosphere of anxiety where people are constantly on edge, wondering when they will be betrayed next or who they can truly rely on. This chronic state of tension wears down the mental and emotional strength of individuals, making it harder for them to maintain their sense of self-worth and peace. Over time, the stress caused by a lack of trust can lead to exhaustion, depression, and a sense of hopelessness. This type of manipulation, which thrives on the erosion of trust, is one of the darkest forces at work in human relationships. It keeps people isolated, disconnected, and constantly questioning themselves and others. A person under the influence of evil seeks to create these divisions because they know that when people cannot trust one another, they are more easily controlled, more easily deceived, and less likely to unite in the face of adversity. The spirit of entitlement is another sign of the devil's influence in a person's life. A man who feels entitled to special treatment, who believes that the world owes him something without any effort or contribution on his part, is operating from a place of deep selfishness. This sense of entitlement is rooted in pride and a false belief in one's superiority over others. The entitled individual feels that his needs, desires, and preferences should always take precedence regardless of the impact on those around him. He demands respect, admiration, and service without giving anything in return, expecting others to cater to his every whim and desire. Entitlement leads to a lack of gratitude and appreciation. Instead of recognizing the contributions of others or acknowledging the sacrifices they have made, the entitled person takes it all for granted. He expects the world to revolve around him, and when things don't go his way, he reacts with anger, frustration, or resentment. He has no understanding of humility or the importance of mutual respect in relationships. This sense of entitlement can manifest in all areas of life, from personal relationships to professional environments. In the workplace, an entitled individual may expect promotions or special privileges without earning them, leading to resentment and tension with colleagues. In relationships, he may take more than he gives, expecting his partner to meet his every need without ever considering their needs or well-being. The entitled individual also tends to see the world in terms of scarcity rather than abundance. He believes that for him to gain something, others must lose something. This mentality fuels competition and jealousy as he becomes fixated on his own success at the spirit of arrogance and self-glorification is a clear sign of evil influence. A person driven by arrogance believes they are above reproach, beyond correction, and deserving of honor without having earned it. They project an image of superiority, looking down on others and dismissing their ideas, efforts, or worth. This arrogance is not merely self-confidence, it is an inflated sense of self, a belief that one is entitled to respect and admiration without considering the contributions or value of others. They will often disregard the input of those around them, assuming their own perspective is the only valid one. This behavior prevents genuine relationships, as the arrogant individual constantly seeks to dominate conversations and situations, leaving little room for collaboration or mutual respect. The arrogance feeds on validation, and the more they are praised, the deeper their need for self-affirmation grows. It is a destructive cycle that isolates them from true connection with others, as no one can live up to their exaggerated sense of self-importance. A person with this spirit will often seek positions of power and influence not to serve others, but to assert their dominance. They use their position to control, manipulate, and demand loyalty, with little regard for the welfare of those they lead. In their world, others exist merely to support their agenda with no room for individuality or dissent. Arrogance distorts their perception of reality, making them believe they are irreplaceable and always right. This mindset prevents growth and change as they close themselves off from new ideas, feedback, or opportunities to learn. The arrogant person believes their way is the only way, and any suggestion of weakness or imperfection is seen as a threat to their fragile ego. The influence of darkness is also seen in those who constantly seek to tear others down. Instead of uplifting, encouraging, or supporting those around them, they take pleasure in criticism, negativity, and destruction. This negative energy is contagious, spreading through communities, workplaces, and homes like a cancer. Rather than offering constructive feedback, they attack the person, undermining their confidence and leaving them feeling defeated. Such behavior is born out of insecurity and jealousy, as the individual feels threatened by the success or potential of others. By tearing down those around them, they try to elevate themselves or regain a false sense of superiority. They thrive on conflict, reveling in the discord they create, as it allows them to maintain a sense of control over others. These individuals are often quick to point out the flaws, mistakes, or weaknesses of others, using them as ammunition to feel better about themselves. They rarely, if ever, acknowledge their own shortcomings, as their pride and arrogance prevent them from facing the truth about themselves. In their eyes, others are always inferior, unworthy of praise, and undeserving of success. This creates an environment of toxicity, where people are too afraid to take risks or showcase their talents for fear of being ridiculed or belittled. Instead of fostering a culture of mutual respect and encouragement, these individuals sow seeds of doubt and fear, leaving those around them paralyzed by the belief that their worth is dependent on meeting someone else's expectations or avoiding criticism. Another indication of dark influence is the consistent pattern of dishonesty. A man who is bound by deceit will habitually manipulate the truth to suit his agenda. Honesty becomes an obstacle in his pursuit of power, status, or control, and he will bend, twist, or completely fabricate the truth to achieve his goals. Deceit manifests in many forms, from simple lies to complex webs of manipulation designed to confuse, mislead, and control others. The deceptive person thrives on creating alternate realities where their version of the truth is the only one that matters. They use lies to cover up mistakes, shift blame, and create confusion, all while presenting themselves as trustworthy and reliable. The deceptive individual will often exploit others' trust, knowing that a lie told convincingly can be more powerful than any truth. They prey on the vulnerabilities of others, knowing that once trust is broken, it is difficult to repair. This constant dishonesty erodes relationships, communities, and organizations as people are left questioning what is real and who they can trust. The manipulator may appear charming, friendly, or even selfless, but their true motive is to control and use others for their personal gain. They will go to great lengths to maintain this facade because the ability to deceive others is their greatest power. Lies can be small, seemingly insignificant at first, but they accumulate over time and create an environment where truth is no longer valued. The liar becomes comfortable in their deceit, weaving more lies to cover up previous ones, until they can no longer distinguish between what is true and what is fabricated. This creates an atmosphere of distrust, where people second-guess everything they hear and question the motives of those around them. The manipulator's ultimate goal is to ensure that they remain in control, and by distorting the truth, they create confusion and uncertainty, making it harder for others to resist or challenge their influence. The spirit of vengeance is another sign of evil influence in a person's life. A man consumed by vengeance is driven by a desire for retaliation, not justice. When wronged, rather than seeking resolution or forgiveness, he seeks to punish, to hurt, and to make others feel the pain he has endured. This cycle of vengeance destroys relationships, communities, and peace as it perpetuates a never-ending loop of anger and bitterness. The one seeking revenge is never satisfied, for the feeling of satisfaction that comes with retribution is fleeting, and the wounds inflicted often leave deep scars that take years to heal. This desire for revenge is rooted in a lack of forgiveness, a refusal to let go of past hurts. The vengeful person believes that by causing pain to others, they will somehow feel better or find closure. But in reality, this only deepens the wounds and keeps them trapped in a cycle of bitterness. They are unable to move forward because their focus is always on the past, always on the wrongs done to them. Forgiveness, on the other hand, releases the power that the offense holds over them. The act of forgiving sets them free, but the spirit of vengeance keeps them chained to the past, consumed by hatred and the desire to inflict suffering.